Very rarely is budgeting taught in high school. Now, this is actually becoming a trend. Certain states are starting to require financial literacy as a final course before they graduate high school, but unfortunately, it is not the norm. These days, we still have to rely on parents in order to teach our students how to properly manage money, or you can look at experts like us in order to help you do so. But that said, it is a very important skill. I'm sure you understand why, but really, when they're heading off to college, it doesn't just mean that all of a sudden they know what to do. Sometimes we have to sit down with them and truly teach them how to manage their money. Now, the benefits of this are endless. Not only will it make them a more responsible adult and help them build a strong financial future, which we are passionate about, but it can also help them minimize the amount that they have to borrow for paying for college because they'll be spending less. So, that said, whether you don't feel confident in budgeting yourself, or if you and your student are looking for a lesson on how to manage money when in college, I'm going to cover exactly what you need to know in today's video, as well as give some kind of cheats to make it a little bit easier for you and your student. All right, let's go ahead and jump in. Now, make sure you hit subscribe because every single week we're giving a new strategy on how to pay for college without student loan debt, whether it comes to securing other money in order to avoid having to pay for it yourself, or even savings tips so that we can reduce how much we need to budget for. So again, make sure you click subscribe. Hey there, my name is Jocelyn Pearson, founder of the Scholarship System, and this is what we do. We help families avoid student loan debt and build strong financial futures, primarily by focusing on scholarships, but we have tons of strategies under our belt. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. So we're going to focus on budgeting for teens and young adults. So this is a guide for parents that are trying to walk your students through this process because I know that it can feel daunting. Now, like I said, why is this important? First and foremost, it helps them keep on track for building a strong financial future, whether it's savings goals or avoiding student loan debt or minimizing how much they have to borrow. So why is budgeting important? I briefly touched on this, but ultimately it's so that students can understand where their or your money is going. It helps keep them on track for whatever it is that you've allocated each month towards paying for college. It can ensure that their bills are paid, they understand what money comes in and out, and they make sure that they don't miss any kind of payments. There is real world experience in this, so not only can it help them from college and beyond when they're on their own, but it can also possibly set them up for their career path. Maybe they have a budget they need to manage as a marketing director or as an engineering person, or maybe they are going into finance and they need to run a budget for an entire business unit. So budgeting is actually more than likely going to be something they see in their role as well, if not running it, for sure following one. It teaches students responsibility and accountability. And lastly, and in my opinion, most importantly, by budgeting, we can be aware of our spending and therefore minimize the cost of college or the amount that we have to borrow to pay for it. It can also reduce how much we need in the first place, so if we are getting scholarships, maybe we can reach that goal a little bit sooner. But ultimately, the cost of college will absolutely be less if we are aware of what we are spending and taking care of a budget. Now, this is very important to have this conversation before your student heads off to college. In fact, we have interviews inside our programs where we suggest working through this for their senior year so that they have tons of practice before they head off on their own. Now, comment below, have you created a budget with your student? What tips do you have to share with other families? Go ahead and comment below, and if you don't have anything to share, comment below with a question, and maybe someone else will be able to chime in on how they handled it with their student. Okay, so let's talk about what sort of things do we need to work into our budget. So first and foremost, of course, educational expenses are so important. Tuition, books, fees, room and board. Are they allowed to eat out? Are they planning to eat out? Do they want fun money? Whatever it is that they think is part of the expenses when it comes to their educational experience, we need to put all of that in there. If you are a member of either of our programs, the Scholarship System or Debt-Free Degree Lab or both, you will find this in our college cost calculator. We have everything that we've thought of as far as expenses, and you can go down the list there. Also in Debt-Free Degree Lab, our monthly membership, we have a full lesson on budgeting, so make sure you check that out. Now, scholarships, again, are a great way to free up this budget. So say we get scholarships and it covers all of tuition and books, then that can can come out of the amount that we need to budget for. So scholarships will make this easier if you and your student can focus on those. So that said, we do have a free training on where to find legitimate scholarships that have less competition. I will link to that in the description below, or you can go to thescholarshipsystem.com/free training, and I'll give you my 6 steps on how to find those scholarships that we want to focus on. Now, next, we want to put in any kind of savings. So it's good to have an emergency fund for things that will pop up because something is guaranteed. For example, for me, freshman year on our way home from college, when we were unloading the car, I actually dropped my laptop onto the driveway and it was done. So I was only 1 year into school, not even, and I already had to purchase a new laptop. That was certainly not in the budget. Now, luckily, I got 6 figures in scholarships. I actually had overage checks every single school year to help pay for school. And so my overage check was able to buy me a new laptop. But again, that's why we want to focus on scholarships. But still, that said, in the budget, if we can, try having your student put money aside. Maybe we can figure out how to cover the whole bill and they have a part-time job and some of that money goes into savings for emergencies, or maybe they need to buy a car or any kind of future expenses. Maybe they'll need to furnish a place one day down the road once they move out of the dorm. So if we can put a little bit into savings, this is a great skill to learn now rather than try to scramble together savings down the road when they're 30. Then the next thing we want to think about are personal expenses. Again, movies, shopping, eating out, fun with friends, game tickets, any kind of fun money that your student will want. And I will tell you right now, in my opinion, students underestimate how much they actually spend unless they are aware of what they're spending and they set a budget. So this is a very, very important category and a very, very important conversation to have with them. This is also where we want to consider bills like cell phone, gas, food, insurance. Will they be eating out? What kind of, any kind of miscellaneous expenses that they're going to experience every single month. We need to put that in here. Now, lastly, then you want to consider income. How much money do they have to allocate towards their expenses? Are they going to be pulling from a 529 plan? That would be considered income because it's a influx of money throughout their college experience. Where will this money come from? Are you going to give them money as a parent? Will you give them an allowance every month? Maybe it's whatever you're saving on groceries by them moving out. You are going to give them every single month towards their budget. So that's something. Are they going to have a part-time job? Will they bring in money there? Are they going to have gift money from graduation that they can slowly allocate throughout the entire school year? And then again, of course, scholarships. Do they have scholarships that will be coming in? Will they have an overage check? Can we factor that into income as well? Again, don't forget that free training in the description below that you can learn where to find these legitimate scholarships that can help your student get to that point. What to include in a budget can be sometimes easy for families when they start thinking about, oh, wow, we have these expenses, we can start rattling things off quickly. But where a lot of families get stuck is how do we keep track of this? How do we make this manageable so that every month our student is truly monitoring what they are spending? Now, some people prefer a paper method. They just want to go ahead and get a little tiny notebook and they can write down everything that they spend. This is actually a fun project. If you're doing this with your student in their senior year, this could be a fun assignment that you and they can do together, and it will probably be eye-opening. Whoa, we're spending this much on stuff every single month. We had no idea. So it actually could be a fun assignment. And also it will make your student think twice when they're going to spend money, because believe it or not, and I've done this, you don't feel like having to write it in the notebook. And so it's like, oh, do I really need that pack of bubble gum or that drink? Nah, it's fine. So it just makes your student more conscious of what they're spending. So that paper method is fun for maybe a month or two just to see what you're spending. But honestly, I personally don't think it's sustainable, especially with today's students. They're just more tech focused. And so that's what I want to focus on. So more realistically, I think a digital solution is the best. So I'm going to give you 2 options. There's so many out there, but these are the 2 that I personally am most familiar with, that I've seen our families use as well, and I've used, again, myself. First and foremost is mint.com. I love this because you can sync it with cards, with checking accounts, and all your student has to do is sync the transactions every month and categorize them. Or some students students, they do it every day. They just go in quickly if they bought something and categorize it correctly, or every week, maybe on Sundays, they go through this. Again, if you don't do this personally as a parent, this is a great project that you can do together and really make it feel like an experience together. And there's no negative side effect, right? The worst thing that could happen is you and your student become aware of what you're spending, which again can be eye-opening. In fact, with Mint.com, my freshman year in college, I put in all my transactions, I synced it, and it showed me what I was spending on eating out. And I was just completely shocked, especially considering I had a meal plan. I had no idea I was spending that much every single month on eating out. I want to say it was over $1,000 in only 3 months. This can add up. If you figure, say, $1,000 per semester, that's $8,000 in the end of a degree. So again, this budgeting software can really show your student, whoa, we're spending a lot more in this category than we thought. And then they can set up a budget and they can see as they're going throughout the month how close they are to using up their budget. So I really personally love Mint.com. Another option is YNAB, YNAB. This one is a little bit more manual, and it's actually intentionally manual to make people more aware of what they're spending rather than just categorizing. They enter things. Some families love YNAB way better than Mint and vice versa. So you really should look at both and see what's best for you and your student. Now, no matter which solution you and your student choose, the key to this is being consistent with logging or categorizing the expenses and keeping track of that. So again, Mint, they just have to log in and the transactions should sync. They just may have to recategorize them properly, but overall it's pretty automated and pretty simple as long as they're regularly logging in. And there's, of course, an app. This, again, will be eye-opening. I guarantee it. But even if we need to, say we set a reminder for us doing it once a week, or maybe something we talk about in a lot of our trainings is scholarship Saturdays or scholarship Sundays. Maybe the first 10 minutes of that is actually going through your budgets together and categorizing things. If you can just set up a designated time and teach them to do that now, they can continue doing it throughout college and beyond. And believe me, it'll be a game changer. They'll be 10 times further than most of their peers if they start this now. Now, I have a few more tips to help you and your student be successful with this, but one of the things another way to manage a budget is a cash or an envelope system. And in fact, actually, my husband and I, we do this where we have our fund money for the month, and we would withdraw the cash at the beginning of the month and divvy it up. And whenever we went out to a beach or for a drink or for some ice cream, it would come out of our cash. And towards the end of the month, we would see, oh, I'm getting low on cash. Okay, maybe we're not going to eat out just yet. Let's wait until the first of the month when we get our new cash budget. And it was actually funny because even though we have our money together, it got to where it was like, you pay for ice cream. No, you pay for ice cream, because we didn't want to use up our fund money. But that cash system really allowed us to we just had to look at what we had in our pockets or in our wallets rather than having to look at specific transactions. So we actually really loved that cash method for the fun money. For us, we did try the envelope method for gas and other things, but personally, I love credit card points. So we actually preferred to charge and use Mint for our core expenses and then pay it off every month. But that fun money, the cash method and / envelope method really did help. Now, we have 2 really amazing blogs on this, how to create a budget for college students and then budgeting for teens. So we will link to those in the description if you're more a blog person or if you want a little bit more detail. Again, all of the resources, the scholarship training, these blog posts, you will find those in the description. So check that out after this video. Now, a very important point when it comes to budgeting with your student is to be realistic. Your student's going to overspend. It happens. We all do this. So where can they find that extra money? Will it be coming from a different category? Will it come from you? Will they pick up a side hustle or a part-time job? Whatever it is they need to do, but just know there needs to be a little bit of buffer in there because it's going to happen. It's just guaranteed. The other thing to keep in mind is that their budget may change every academic year. So maybe they don't have a car their freshman and sophomore year, but they do for their junior year. That's going to be a big difference when it comes to their budget. They need a budget for fuel, insurance, parking tickets, they're inevitable in college. Parking passes. So you'll want to revisit this probably at least every school year. This also could be something that you could do over school breaks, because you can check in and say, hey, how are we doing? Did we set up the right budgeting amount, or do we need to adjust? So that can be a great time to just get a pulse on how it's going. Now, lastly, and this is important when it comes to budgeting and avoiding overspending, I want to just quickly mention credit cards. I do love credit cards when they're used properly. For us, we never pay interest. We pay the full balance off every single month because we love the perks. But I knew that I was responsible enough to do that. I knew I had scholarship money with overage checks. So anything I spent, I knew that I had the money in my checking account to pay for it. That is not every student. In fact, that's not most students. And so if your student is not responsible enough or not experienced enough to get a credit card, please have that discussion with them. Credit card companies are everywhere when it comes to college students. They're on campus, they're bribing with pizza and gift baskets and towels, all these things, all this swag in order to get a student to sign up for their credit card. If they can manage one, it is good to start one as soon as they're 18, because the longer they have one, the better their credit score in the long run. But again, we do not want to open up the doors for getting in more debt than they already are for college. So this can be a tool, but it really needs to be for the right student. So setting up a budget can really help them avoid needing a credit card and overspending. Okay, so that said, this might be tips that can help you as a parent, but for sure you should have this discussion with your students. I know that you might be thinking, don't you guys teach on scholarships? Yes, and this is part of it, because we need to know how much we need in scholarships. The less we need, the easier it can be to cover that gap, but also ultimately we want to keep students out of as much debt as possible, and budgeting is a huge piece of that. Now again, don't forget those free resources that I mentioned, the blogs and the free scholarship training. They will be linked in the description, and don't forget to click subscribe, because every week we have a new strategy on how to avoid that dreaded student loan debt. All right, I'll see you there.